George and Margaret, either one of you, whoever's quicker to the gun, jump in and talk about this video. What do you guys think? If you see,
well, I think that once you release this, how are the prison authorities going to respond? I mean, that's it. The prison authorities are going to come down on you like a ton of bricks. They're going to, bring the whole, take the whole place apart, every single, bed, mattress, bookcase, to find this contraband phone. So by disclosing this footage, I mean, you're pretty much put pay to any further footage, because they're gonna come and take your phone away, but quick, and punish you quite severely for having a contraband phone.
So it's been a good week with the Swedish decision, but this video is just very weird, and I think it pays for us all to be, at the very least, skeptical about its origins and about who did it. We can't trust these intelligence agencies. They haven't gone through all this to let Julian go free. They are going to do everything they possibly can to keep him. And I'm going to quote Mike Pompeo, who is our idiot Secretary of State, who blurted out, at the CIA, we lied, we cheated, we stole. And that's what they do. That's what these intelligence agencies do. And they are always thinking ahead. They're always thinking about some way to discredit anybody they want and to promote their own point of view.
Somebody took these videos and held on to them for quite a while now, it would seem, and now releases them. So the timing is the most suspicious thing to me, and I can't help but think it came after Meltzer's report, and to try to blunt the effectiveness of what that report said.
I'm absolutely convinced that it was an attempt to blunt the effect of the report, but I think that this is going to come back and hurt Julian, because I think the prison authorities are going to accuse him of being somehow responsible. He's somehow involved in this, and that he was arranged with whoever took this footage, that he wanted to get this this footage out into the rest of the world, because he wants to fight against the government, fight the power, and so on. So it's all being done in order to poison public opinion against Julian and the judicial system. And as I say, he's up for parole within 4 months, which is, that's no time at all.
Hey, I don't have super long, but I wanted to hop on because everybody has a lot of questions and
yes,
like that. I can't answer a lot of them because, like you guys, I don't know for sure what this person's motives are. I only know what they've told me, but I can explain how it came about, and I think that might help a little bit for people who are really concerned. So what happened was, the day before yesterday at like 6 a.m., I found out about this account on Twitter, had no followers, but they were tweeting photos at like reporters, WikiLeaks supporters, things like that, claiming to be an inmate and trying to push this fundraiser, really bizarre fundraiser. So I started monitoring it around 6 a.m. the day before yesterday, and I was watching it all day. I was watching who was following it, who they were tweeting at, who was retweeting it. I reached out to a lot of people who had retweeted it and been like, hey, please don't tweet that yet. Like, let's figure out who this person is. And then finally I made a fake account and I tweeted at them and I was like, hey, can you DM me? So I started talking to him, chatting with them. They told me that they were inmate. They were sending me pictures from inside their cell, which obviously could still be a guard who was inside a cell. It doesn't necessarily prove anything, but I was trying to collect information and figure out what was going on. And so then maybe like 4:30 in the morning, before I published, I noticed that a CNN producer followed them. And that's when I was like, all right, I need to write a story and get it out, because if CNN is the one who pushes this out, they're going to push it out with the DOJ press releases. They're going to push it out with fake narratives and smears. And obviously this would get a lot of attention if it broke on CNN. So instead of allowing that to happen, me and multiple other people, I sent my draft to a lot of our friends to look over before we published. We decided to push it out with the UN report. I tried to include almost all of the UN report with it. And I knew that if Gateway Pundit was the first to break it, then no media outlet was going to want to touch it because nobody likes to source Gateway Pundit. So it was an attempt, a frazzled attempt to circumvent CNN gaining the exclusive. So essentially that's what made my decision to publish it. But beyond that, I did speak to him on the phone. I spoke to him on Twitter. I ended up speaking to him for, probably 10 hours between phone calls and messages and things like that. He claimed over and over again that he's a supporter of WikiLeaks. He was like, I'm a prisoner. Would I side with the government that has me in here, or Julian Assange, who is a hero? And all I could do was report what he said. I didn't want to put my own beliefs into the article. So I reported what he said. I reported the concerns. I reported WikiLeaks's legal team's rebuttal about, things like the canteen and whatnot. But yeah, that's essentially how it came about. Sorry for rambling. I don't have super.
Cassandra, what kind of did he sound like? An Englishman? Did he? What could you make out?
He's definitely British.
Yeah.
And it sounded, well, I actually don't want to say too much descriptive information about him because I'm concerned that if he is retaliated against, that this could blow back on Julian.
Right.
So, because I don't know. I don't know if he's,
But did he seem a little more too intelligent for a typical prisoner? I mean, and 10 hours is a hell of a long.
Intelligent prisoners. Julian's a prisoner right now.
No, that's true. But somebody who's so well versed in, forget about intelligent, but so well versed in the WikiLeaks story.
Well, I did talk to him about this. Basically, once Julian went into the prison, he became like a superstar in there. Because everybody was curious about him. He said that the number one question Julian was getting asked is the Illuminati real? People were just intrigued by him.
What about when? When did he take these videos? Did you get into that question?
That was in my story. He said that it was about a month ago. It was before he got sick, before he went in to the hospital wing. I also want to note that these pictures were especially shocking for me because I just saw him in March and it looks like he's lost 30 pounds. And so to me, everybody's saying that he looks really healthy and great. I think that people who have seen him recently beyond being dragged out of the embassy can all attest that these pictures are actually quite shocking. Like the amount of weight that he's lost in such a short period of time is crazy.
Yeah, but he's healthy compared to being in the hospital as he is now. Right. That's what it means.
You got to remember this is before he went into the hospital.
Did he tell you how he got these pictures out of there and to roughly know the video? How did he get out?
Well, I can't speak for Rupley, but he did send me, he told me about the videos yesterday. He sent me screenshots and they included pictures of Julian's cell, which I chose not to release. And it's also why I didn't even want the video because I thought that was a really big invasion of privacy. Because again, I can only assume that Julian doesn't know that these pictures were taken. But the inmate, he told me that he has multiple phones. If you look up Belmarsh in their last report, there's like an annual what's it called? People go in and inspect it and speak to the inmates and things like that. If you read the last report, there's a huge problem with cell phones getting into the prison, and it's leading to massive gang fights and things like that, power struggles. But this inmate, he's active on Twitter. He made an account specifically for this, but he had been following WikiLeaks because, Julian got in there. According to him, I'm not saying this is true because obviously I don't know. But he said that, he's been talking to Julian a lot. He really is interested in him. So he's been following the case online. And he was very upset that the media has been smearing him. He told me that the guards have been smearing Julian to the other inmates and referring to him as a rapist, because everybody knows how rapists get treated in prison, right? And so he told me that he didn't believe that the guards were malicious, but that they were uninformed and that they were buying into the media lies. And so he was hoping that by putting out these pictures, he could get somebody to write it and include what he was asking be pushed out with it. And he really wanted to express that Julian is not actually a rapist.
And that would jump in and ask you a
yes,
question.
Please.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, what do you, and you know, asking a question that wouldn't ask you to identify this person, but regardless of any of that, what do you feel like at a gut level that person's real motivations might have been? Do you believe their story that they support Assange, or do you think there may be something else going on? I'm just curious.
I think that I believe that they support Assange, and I think that they might have been misguided about how to go about trying to help. I think that they are trying to, I think that they're trying to do what they can with what resources they can, and I'm not convinced that it was malicious necessarily. I have a lot of more reasons for believing that, but again, these are things that I feel might help identify this person, and I do not think that that's a good idea.
No, agreed, for sure.
So I think that they're somebody who meant well, for the most part. But again, that's complete speculation, because the government does crazy things, and you know, you can't really be sure of who anyone is or what their motives are. But what he was saying to me was consistent, and it sounded like they wanted to help. I don't know.
Yeah. Could I just ask, did he tell you that Julian was aware that he was being photographed, or not, or that Julian wasn't aware? Did he have any sense of whether Julian was aware of this?
I don't believe Julian was aware, but I don't know.
And what about the thing about the son? He said that, how did the son get to know about this this thing and offered him $10,000?
That's how this account caught my attention. They had been tweeting at reporters. They were tweeting at various people. So I'm assuming that they tweeted it at a Sun reporter. They were deleting a lot of tweets as they were going while I was watching their account, but they had been tweeting at a bunch of people trying to get their attention. And I can only assume that they did manage to get the attention of somebody at the Sun. But again, I don't even know if that's true. I reached out to the Sun to try and get a comment about if they actually reached out to them, and they didn't respond to me. So I don't know.
Impact. This is prison after all. Let's not, Julian is a famous prisoner, maybe the most famous prisoner in the world, but prisons work pretty much the same. They have rules, and if they're a prominent person, that can be problematic. They're not treated well. I mean, the fact that, what is it, 2 visits a month? I think that's what they said. And if the father can't see him, his own father can't see him because the doctors are seeing him. So let's not forget this is jail, and he is at risk of being treated the way anybody in a jail anywhere in the world is going to be treated.
I can't answer more things, but I really feel strongly that we need to put the well-being of Julian before people's concerns right now. So there's a lot of things that I don't feel comfortable saying, but I do want people to know that these photos in the video were a month ago. This was probably 2 weeks at least before he was hospitalized. And it is reassuring to know that there are people who care about him there potentially. But yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if that was only a couple weeks in and he had lost that much weight by then, that is even more concerning, and that does go against people saying, oh, he's fine, he's clearly okay, and that type of thing.
I mean, those images shocked me. Like, he looks he looks so gaunt and frail compared to when I saw him. I mean, it's extremely stark contrast from, you know, March and now, or March and a month ago. So people saying that he looks good is really frustrating, because yes, he looks good in a general sense, but when you think about the fact that he looked completely different in March, and even in March, I was like, wow, he's losing so much weight. What's going on? Because I had visited him in January as well. And in that couple months, he had lost a lot of weight then too. And it seemed like from the first time that I visited him until these photos, it's a completely different person. Like he's like been cut in half. And I feel like it accelerated rapidly starting in like January.
Wow.
Because by March, I think I even wrote in my article that I noticed he was losing a ton of weight. But yeah, I
remember at the time, in those last 6 months or so, while he was still at the embassy, there were reports that he was being denied food at times. So, and so when that was happening, and I remember when you mentioned that, that's the context that I had it in mentally. But for him to continue to lose weight that rapidly in prison is really a concern for sure. Yeah,
and my big concern, which the prisoner couldn't verify for me, I need to try asking again. The phone call was very choppy, and it was very hard to hear him because he was whispering a lot of it. So I'm going to try asking this again, but I'm worried that maybe he's afraid to eat, because I know when another friend of mine was in prison, and they're a very political person and, you know, very polarizing, they were deeply afraid to eat. And they also lost 40 pounds in like 2 months while they were in jail, because they just didn't eat prison food. And the only thing they could eat was canteen. And Julian right now can only get $6 worth of food from the canteen every week. I'm wondering if he just is scared to eat and isn't eating. And in which case the prison should allow him to have a little bit more canteen money, because it's not good. And with canteen, they can buy prepackaged foods that aren't prepared by other people.
So reactions, thoughts, Margaret, George, what do you think about this, and what do we make of this complex new layer of information on top of the already complex story?
Well, it still seems very strange, very, very peculiar. The idea that this person has this Twitter account, is able obviously to keep it confidential, free of the prying eyes of the prison authorities. He has 4 phones or multiple phones, and the authorities can't locate them. He's able to conduct conversations lasting 10 hours, and the authorities are unable to identify that he's having these conversations and locate the phone on which this conversation is taking place, emails and so on. I mean, you know, this isn't a holiday camp. This is a prison. I mean, prisons monitor all communications by all prisoners, every single thing. I mean, other than communication with lawyers, everything is monitored by the authorities. I just don't know quite how this person can just simply, you know, casually do, I'll just have another phone call now, and so on. It just seems bizarre to me.
Yeah, me too. I completely agree. I think the fact that they're able to allegedly smuggle multiple phones and use them, even whispered, I think is shocking. It's very shocking to me to think that would happen. But I think regardless of the motivations of this person, which may have been positive, they may not have been intentionally, as Cassandra said, like trying to hurt Assange. But regardless, even if, you know, whether or not they were altruistic or not, or if they were being malicious, it does have the potential to encourage the people amongst the right-wing Trump crowd who follow QAnon or otherwise just want an excuse to not hold Trump to account on their prosecution of Assange, to say, oh, look, he's fine, we don't need to worry. You know, maybe he's not in the hospital, maybe he's out, as Joe said earlier, that people were already commenting, oh, well, he must be fine, or he's out of the hospital now, which is just totally incorrect.
Yes, yes, that's what I have to say, that Cassandra seemed credible. I mean, and convincing that this guy may very well have been a prisoner. I mean, multiple phones in there. I mean, it all seems quite hard to believe, but I think stranger things may have happened in prison. I think there were a bunch of mobsters who kept running. Wasn't there one of the drug lords in Colombia who ran his operation for years inside the prison?
Right.
You know, he was on the phone all the time, directing here and there. So it could happen. It could happen, but I mean, it was every time you see an image of Assange these days, it's a bit of a jolt. When we saw him coming out of the embassy that day when he was arrested, nobody had seen him except a few privileged people who'd gone to visit him. So Cassandra, that's why she adds a lot to the conversation, because she could tell us how much he weighed in March, and she could see a difference where the rest of us, we know that he's in a prison and in pretty hospital in pretty bad shape. And here we see him standing there looking pretty relaxed, having a conversation leading up against one of these table football games. So,
but it's because we know, he's basically been locked up 7 years inside this embassy, getting no sunlight, no exercise, anything. Then he's arrested, dumped in prison. We kind of expect that he would look like somebody on death's door. It's like somebody on his last legs. With an IV trip attached to him. So that's why when you look at him, you say, well, okay. I mean, having gone through all that, you don't look that bad. I mean, I'm not saying he looks healthy, but he doesn't look as bad as we might have expected he would look.
Yeah, that's what makes it, the timing is, I mean, I'm suspicious about everything, especially if anything happens in his favor. The Swedish decision is in his favor. So what an opportune moment to release a video, which to most people, you'd say, well, he looks okay. And all the questions about, who's filming, is he working with someone? I don't know, it's not good. And also the fact that he, I think it's been a week since we were told he was taken to the hospital. So people could say, is he out of the hospital? Or, there's so many ways he can be discredited again by these photos and this video. So it's still very troubling.
The real concern to me, anyway, is how is it that he went from looking okay in these photos to a couple of weeks later not being able to speak a sentence, having to be hospitalized, and apparently yesterday having doctors rushed to aid him. So that is more concerning to me, to see him basically okay in these photos. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem that they'll be taken that way by the majority of people that see them. So
I completely agree with that. That's really what's now what we're left with, that he was in that condition in those videos a couple of months ago or a month ago, and now he's in a hospital. What the hell happened in the interim?
Yeah, and it also the tide had started to turn somewhat when people who were hostile to him began to realize the implications, the precedent that was being set by his prosecution and his being charged with the Espionage Act. So I don't know. I'm thinking the worst. This was recorded to come out at the right time. It's like, he's getting a little bit of sympathy. Let's try to disrupt that.
Well, I thought it was like to try to undermine the credibility of Nils Melzer, of the UN Rapporteur on Torture. He came out, that guy was incredible. He's giving interviews to everybody. He's speaking his mind. He stood up to the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, Mr. Hunt. Yeah. I mean, he was great. This is not the kind of way they like to be treated, members of the in the high state offices in the United States or the United Kingdom. And this is just some UN guy, and here he is standing up. So we got to show them. Let the public be confused and think it was all a bunch of lies. We're treating him great in the prison. He's doing fine. This is what I thought, but Cassandra's telling a different story. I mean, that the guy, it's a legitimate prisoner who really likes him and was happy. He brought a smile to his face when the 500 letters arrived only for Assange, and nobody got another letter, and he was smiling about that. He could be an extraordinarily interesting prisoner.
It kind of sounds like
it does. He does
So
sound like.
Yeah. Now, but you made a point. Didn't you say that in Cassandra's article he said dollars? He was offered dollars by the
Yes.
Sun.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
Why not?
That's a telltale sign. I mean, unless Cassandra made a mistake and she meant pounds, it seems very odd for him to say dollars. The Sun doesn't offer dollars.
Right.
Well,
Not
we know
not
that she
in
was
the
writing
UK.
it in a quick time period, so it may have just been a conversion mentally, but that is an interesting point for sure.
I just wanted to follow up with what you were saying, Joe, about the rapporteur and his great courage, and he was unambiguous about how Julian has been treated, unambiguous in his condemnation of the British government and the U.S. government, and they don't like that. They don't even like the UN. They don't. Obviously, they've done everything they can to ignore him. It's not the first UN report which condemned Julian's treatment. So no, they don't like that. They don't want anybody to stand in their way. That's the way they operate quite openly now, and with clear disregard for what used to be norms of international behavior and diplomacy.